Elizabeth Sullivan heard her husband's voice through the cathedral ceiling of their penthouse before she saw him. Juliet is pregnant. 3 words, spoken softly into a phone. 3 words that detonated like a bomb in her chest. She stood frozen in the marble entryway, snow melting off her Burberry coat onto Italian tile, her hands still gripping the handles of shopping bags filled with his Christmas gifts. She'd caught an earlier flight from Milan, wanted to surprise him, wanted to see his face light up when she walked through the door 12 hours ahead of schedule.
Surprise.
I know, William continued, his voice drifting from his study. But we can't keep hiding this. It's been 4 months. People are going to notice. For months, Elizabeth's knees threatened to give out. For months ago, she'd been in Paris for Fashion Week. He'd said he was in Tokyo for a merger. Had he been with her instead? With Juliet? Who the hell was Juliet? Her mind raced through every woman in their social circle. Juliet Ashford? The gallery owner who'd curated their art collection? Juliet Chin? His executive assistant who'd just transferred to the Singapore office? Wait,
Singapore.
4 months ago. Oh God. The DNA test came back, William said, and Elizabeth heard ice clinking in a glass. It's conclusive. DNA test. He'd actually taken a DNA test to confirm paternity of another woman's child. On Christmas Eve, while their home was decorated with the 12-foot tree she'd had imported from Norway, while the staff prepared dinner for 40 guests arriving in 6 hours, while she'd spent the last 3 weeks shopping for the perfect gift for the man she'd loved since she was 19 years old. The man who was apparently having a baby with someone named Juliet. Elizabeth set the shopping bags down with trembling hands. The Patek Philippe watch she'd spent $80,000 on, the one she'd had engraved with their wedding date, suddenly felt like a sick joke. She should leave, walk out the door, get back in the car, disappear before he knew she'd arrived, before she had to see his face, hear his excuses, watch her entire life implode in real time. But her feet moved forward instead, down the hallway, toward the study, toward the truth that was about to destroy everything. Listen, I need to go, William said. Elizabeth's flight doesn't land until midnight, but I need to figure out how to tell her before someone else does. This is going to break her heart. This is going to break her heart. Past tense would have been more accurate. Elizabeth pushed open the study door. William sat behind his mahogany desk, the one that had belonged to his grandfather, the one where he'd built a tech empire worth $47 billion. He wore the cashmere sweater she'd given him last Christmas, and his dark hair was disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. Stress, guilt, fear. Good. His head snapped up. The phone slipped from his hand and clattered onto the desk. Elizabeth. Her name came out strangled. You're not supposed to be. Who is she? Elizabeth's voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that came right before a hurricane made landfall. Who is Juliet? Wait. Before we go any further. And trust me, you need to know what happens next because this is not the story you think it is. I have to ask. Where are you watching from? Seriously, drop your location in the comments because this story is about to go places you won't see coming. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Hit that button. Because the twist that's about to unfold, the truth about who Juliet really is going to blow your mind. I'll wait. Subscribe. Right now. Back to Elizabeth's world falling apart. William stood slowly, his hands raised like he was approaching a wounded animal. Elizabeth, let me explain. Who is SHE? The words ripped out of her, no longer calm, no longer controlled. Who is the woman carrying your child? Because that's what you just said. Isn't it? DNA test. For months pregnant. That's what I heard. You don't understand? Then make me understand, William. She was shouting now. Months of loneliness and neglect and suspicious late-night meetings finally erupting. Make me understand how my husband of 7 years got another woman pregnant. Make me understand how you could stand in our home, wearing the sweater I gave you, and talk about DNA tests and breaking my heart. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Elizabeth's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Is she younger? More beautiful? Less busy with her career? Is that it? I was gone too much, working too hard. So you found someone who had more time for you. Elizabeth, stop. Or was it just sex? Just a meaningless affair that resulted in a very meaningful consequence. She laughed, and it sounded broken even to her own ears. God, William, a baby. You're having a baby with her. The words landed like physical blows. She'd wanted a baby. For 3 years she'd been asking, planning, hoping. And he'd always said, not yet. The company needed him. The timing wasn't right. They had time. Apparently he'd just been waiting for the right woman to have one with. And it wasn't Elizabeth. Sit down, William said quietly. Please, just sit down and let me explain. I don't want to sit down. I want you to tell me who she is. You know who she is. The room tilted. What? You know Juliet? William said, and something in his expression made Elizabeth's blood run cold. You've known her your whole life. No, that was impossible. Elizabeth's mind raced through names, faces, every woman she'd ever introduced him to, every friend, every colleague, Your sister, William said. Juliet is your sister. The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. Because Elizabeth didn't have a sister. She was an only child. Her parents had died in a plane crash when she was 23, and she'd inherited everything. The Sullivan fortune, the responsibilities, the loneliness. She'd always been alone. I don't have a sister, Elizabeth said slowly. Yes, William said. You do. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a folder. Inside were photographs, documents, a birth certificate with a name Elizabeth had never seen before, Juliet Marie Sullivan. Born 2 years after Elizabeth. Given up for adoption when their mother was just 19. Before she'd married Elizabeth's father. Before the money, the mansion, the perfect life. Elizabeth stared at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. This is insane. My mother would have told me. She wouldn't have kept this secret. She kept it for 28 years, William said. Until 6 months ago, when Juliet hired a private investigator to find her birth family. When she discovered who her biological mother was. Who her sister was. 6 months ago. Not 4. You've known for 6 months? Elizabeth's voice was barely a whisper. I've known for 6 months. You were supposed to find out 3 months ago, but then your mother's letters arrived, the ones she'd left with her lawyer, to be delivered after her death. The ones explaining everything. But they got lost in probate and then rerouted to the wrong address and... He ran his hand through his hair again. Elizabeth, your mother wanted you to know. She wanted you and Juliet to have a relationship. That's why she left half of everything to her. The room spun. What? The money your parents left you? It was supposed to be split between both daughters. But since Juliet hadn't been found yet, everything came to you. Now that she's been located, The estate needs to be redistributed according to your mother's wishes. This couldn't be happening. This was insane.
Impossible.
So let me get this straight, Elizabeth said, her mind struggling to process. I have a secret sister who's been searching for me. You've known about her for 6 months and didn't tell me. And now she's pregnant, and you took a DNA test and she stopped, looked at her husband, saw the truth in his eyes before he said it. No, Elizabeth. Breathe. William, tell me you didn't. It's not mine, he said quickly. The baby isn't mine, Elizabeth. That's what the DNA test proved. That's what I was telling her on the phone. Relief and confusion crashed over her in equal measure. Then whose? We don't know. She won't say. William moved around the desk, reaching for her, but Elizabeth stepped back. Juliet showed up 4 months ago, pregnant and terrified. She'd been in a relationship with someone. She won't tell us who, and when she told him about the baby, he disappeared. She has no one, Elizabeth. No family except you. And I've been trying to help her, trying to keep her safe. But I didn't know how to tell you because you thought I'd think you were the father. Elizabeth's voice was hollow. Because I thought it would hurt you to know your mother kept this secret. That you have a sister who needed help. And I gave it to her before you even knew she existed. Elizabeth looked at the folder on the desk, at the birth certificate, at the photograph of a girl, a woman who had her mother's eyes. Her eyes. Where is she? Elizabeth asked. Upstairs. In the guest wing. William's voice was careful. She's been living here for 2 months. I was going to tell you tonight after the party. I had it all planned out. She's been living in our home for 2 months, and you didn't tell me? I was trying to protect you. By lying to me? By hiding my sister? By making me think? Her voice broke. I thought you were having an affair, William. I thought you were leaving me. Never, he said fiercely. Elizabeth, I would never. But you did lie. For 6 months you lied. I was respecting your mother's wishes, trying to find the right way to bring Juliet into your life. She didn't want to ambush you, didn't want to destroy the memory you have of your parents. So instead you destroyed my trust in you. The words hung between them, sharp and true. William's face crumpled. I know I handled this wrong. But Elizabeth, you have to understand, Juliet is family. Your family. And she needs you. Elizabeth stared at the man she'd married. The man who'd kept secrets to protect her, and felt something fundamental shift in her understanding of their marriage. He'd lied, but he'd also sheltered a pregnant woman with nowhere to go. Hidden her sister when she was vulnerable. Tried to navigate an impossible situation. He'd done everything wrong in exactly the right way. I want to meet her, Elizabeth said quietly. William's eyes widened. Now? Right now? Because Elizabeth Sullivan had spent her entire life being an only child, carrying the weight of her family legacy alone. And suddenly, impossibly, she wasn't alone anymore. She had a sister, and that changed everything. Okay, did you see that coming? Did you? Drop your reaction in the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? This story is just getting started. And the secrets buried in the Sullivan family? They go deeper than you can imagine. Hit that subscribe button. You know you want to. The guest wing occupied the entire east side of the penthouse, a space Elizabeth had designed for visiting family that never came. Her parents were dead. William's parents preferred their estate in Connecticut. The rooms sat empty 11 months out of the year, filled with expensive furniture no one used and art no one saw. Now those rooms housed a sister she didn't know existed. William led her down the hallway, his hand hovering near her elbow without quite touching. The gesture felt like an apology, present but uncertain, wanting to offer support while respecting the space her anger required. "She's been staying in the blue suite," William said quietly. "She wanted the smallest room, said she didn't feel right taking up too much space. But I insisted she have somewhere comfortable. The baby," he stopped. "She's had a difficult pregnancy. Morning sickness that lasted all day. Stress. The doctor has her on bed rest for now." Elizabeth processed this information in silence. Her sister was upstairs, pregnant and sick, living in a home Elizabeth paid for while Elizabeth had been flying between fashion shows and business meetings, completely oblivious. What else had she been oblivious to? They reached the blue suite. William knocked softly. "Juliet, there's someone here to see you." A pause. Then a voice, young, uncertain, achingly familiar. "It's not a good time, William. I'm not feeling well, and the party's in a few hours. Can it wait?" Elizabeth's heart clenched. Even her voice sounded like their mother's. The same slight rasp, the same careful pronunciation of consonants. "It can't wait," William said, looking at Elizabeth for confirmation. She nodded. "I'm coming in." He opened the door. The blue suite was bathed in late afternoon light, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park dusted with snow. A Christmas tree stood in the corner, smaller than the one downstairs, but decorated with obvious care. Handmade ornaments, strings of popcorn, paper snowflakes, the kind of tree a child would make. And on the sofa, wrapped in a cashmere throw Elizabeth recognized from the linen closet, sat a woman who looked like a ghost of her mother. Juliet Sullivan was 26 years old according to the birth certificate, but she looked younger, fragile. Her dark hair, the same shade as Elizabeth's as their mother's, was pulled back in a messy bun. Her face was pale, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion, and her hand rested protectively on the swell of her stomach, visible even beneath the oversized sweater she wore. Those eyes, green like Elizabeth's, like the eyes she saw in the mirror every morning, went wide with shock. "You're early," Juliet whispered. "The flight wasn't supposed to land until I caught an earlier one." Elizabeth's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Wanted to surprise my husband." "Elizabeth," William started. "It's fine." Elizabeth stepped into the room, her eyes never leaving Juliet's face. "William told me everything. About you. About Mother. About the baby." Juliet's face crumpled. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted it to happen like this. I told William we should tell you months ago, but he said you were dealing with so much, and I didn't want to add to your stress. And then the pregnancy got complicated and—" She stopped, breathing hard. "You must hate me." "I don't hate you," Elizabeth said, and realized with surprise that it was true. "I don't know you well enough to hate you." The words came out harsher than intended. Juliet flinched. Elizabeth moved to the armchair across from the sofa and sat down with the practiced grace her mother had drilled into her from childhood. Back straight, ankles crossed, hands folded in lap. Every inch the Sullivan heiress, even as her world crumbled. "Tell me about yourself," Elizabeth said. "Start from the beginning." Juliet looked at William, who nodded encouragingly and took a position by the window, close enough to support, far enough to let the sisters navigate this moment themselves. "I grew up in Buffalo," Juliet began, her voice soft, "with adoptive parents who loved me very much. Dad was a teacher, Mom was a nurse. We didn't have a lot of money, but we were happy. She twisted the edge of the throw between her fingers. They told me I was adopted when I was 8. Said my birth mother had been very young, that she'd wanted to give me a better life than she could provide at the time. Elizabeth thought of her mother at 19. Young, terrified, pregnant, and alone. It didn't match the composed woman who'd raised her, the society matriarch who'd hosted dinner parties for senators and never let anyone see her sweat. They encouraged me to search for my biological family when I was ready, Juliet continued. But I didn't want to. I loved my parents. I didn't need anyone else. Her voice broke. Then 2 years ago they died. Car accident on the thruway. Ice on the road. Gone in an instant. Elizabeth's breath caught. She knew that pain. Knew the horror of a phone call that changed everything. "I'm sorry," Elizabeth said quietly. "After they died, I felt so alone. I had no siblings, no aunts or uncles, no one. So I hired a private investigator to find my birth family." Juliet's hand moved to her stomach again, a protective gesture that seemed unconscious. It took a year, but he found her. Found Catherine Marie Sullivan. Found out she'd married rich, had another daughter, built this incredible life. And that she was dead, Elizabeth said. Yes. Tears spilled down Juliet's cheeks. I was too late. She died 3 years before I found her. I'd never get to meet her, never get to ask why she gave me up, never get to know if she ever thought about me. Elizabeth felt something crack inside her chest. She thought about you. Juliet looked up, hope and fear warring in her eyes. I found journals, Elizabeth said, after Mother died, going through her things, settling the estate. There were dozens of them going back decades, and in almost every one, there was an entry on your birthday. She closed her eyes, remembering the words that had confused her at the time. August 15th. She'd write about wondering where you were, what you were doing, if you were happy, if you were loved. She remembered my birthday? Juliet's voice was barely a whisper. Every single year, Elizabeth opened her eyes. I didn't understand then. I thought maybe she was writing about a friend's child or a charity case she'd sponsored. It never occurred to me. She stopped, swallowed hard.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry I didn't know about you sooner. I'm sorry I couldn't welcome you into our family the way Mother wanted. You're welcoming me now, Juliet said. Am I? Elizabeth looked around the beautiful room, at the sister who'd been hidden from her. Or am I just processing the fact that my husband has been lying to me for 6 months? That my mother kept this massive secret? That my entire understanding of my family was wrong? Elizabeth, William started. I'm not angry, Elizabeth said, though she wasn't sure if that was true. I'm just lost. I don't know how to be a sister. I don't know how to trust you or him or anyone right now. Juliet nodded slowly. I understand, and I know this is all happening too fast, and the timing is terrible with Christmas and the party and everything. But Elizabeth, she leaned forward, urgency in her eyes. I need to tell you something about the baby, about why I'm really here. Elizabeth's heart rate picked up. William said you won't tell anyone who the father is. Because I can't. Juliet's face went pale. Because if certain people find out I'm pregnant with his child, they'll kill me. The room went silent. What? Elizabeth breathed. The father is dangerous, Juliet said. Powerful, connected. And when I told him I was pregnant, he made it very clear that the pregnancy couldn't continue, that there couldn't be any evidence of our relationship. He threatened you? William's voice was hard. He offered me money, a lot of money, to make it go away. Juliet's hand tightened on her stomach. And when I refused, he told me, accidents happen to women all the time. Falls downstairs, car crashes, medication mix-ups. Elizabeth felt ice spreading through her veins. Like what happened to my mother, to Grace. Juliet met her eyes. Exactly like what happened to Grace. And in that moment, Elizabeth understood why her sister was really here. She wasn't just hiding from an angry ex-boyfriend. She was hiding from someone who'd killed before, and would kill again. Elizabeth stood abruptly, her mind racing. We need to call the police. If someone threatened you. And tell them what? Juliet's laugh was bitter. That a man I was sleeping with suggested I shouldn't have his baby? There's no proof, Elizabeth. No recording, no witnesses. Just his word against mine. Then we'll hire security. Bodyguards. I already tried that, William interjected. The security team I hired quit after 2 weeks. Said they received threats against their families. Professional, credible threats. Elizabeth looked at her husband. And you didn't think to tell me this? I was handling it. The lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the penthouse. The only illumination coming from the snowy twilight outside the windows. Emergency generators should have kicked in immediately. The building had backup systems worth millions. They stayed dark. That's not normal, William said, already moving toward Juliet. Elizabeth's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We know she's there. Send her down in 5 minutes, or we come up. Her blood turned to ice. William, another buzz. This time a photo. The lobby of their building. 3 men in black tactical gear. And the doorman, Marcus, cable tied to a chair, blood running from his nose. Oh God! Juliet whispered, looking at her own phone. The same image. William was already at the safe hidden behind a painting, pulling out a handgun Elizabeth didn't know he owned. The panic room. Now. We don't have a panic room, Elizabeth said. Yes, we do. I had it installed 3 months ago. He grabbed Juliet's arm, helping her stand. Behind the master bedroom closet. Reinforced steel, independent air supply, satellite phone. 3 months ago? Elizabeth's voice rose. You've been preparing for this for 3 months? I've been preparing since the first death threat arrived. William thrust the gun into Elizabeth's hands. Take this. Get Juliet to safety. I'll handle. The elevator dinged.
Impossible.
The private elevator required a key card and biometric scan. No one could access it without, unless someone very powerful had override codes. Move! William shoved them toward the hallway. But Juliet stopped, her face draining of color as she stared at the elevator doors sliding open. A man stepped out, tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a 3-piece suit despite the tactical operation happening in his wake. He looked like someone's grandfather, like a CEO, like money and power wrapped in cashmere. He smiled at Juliet with genuine warmth. Hello, darling, he said. I've been looking everywhere for you. Elizabeth felt Juliet's entire body go rigid with terror. You know him? Elizabeth whispered. That's the father, Juliet breathed. That's Senator Richard Dawson. And Elizabeth's world tilted again. Because she knew that name. Everyone knew that name. Richard Dawson, senior senator from New York, chairman of the Armed Services Committee, married for 40 years to his college sweetheart, and currently leading in polls for the next presidential election. Senator Richard Dawson walked into their home like he owned it, his Italian leather shoes silent on the marble floor. Behind him, two men in tactical gear flanked the elevator, weapons visible but not raised. A show of force wrapped in civility. "You've caused quite a bit of trouble, Juliet," Dawson said, his voice grandfatherly and warm, the tone of a man used to being loved, trusted, believed. "Running away like that, hiding from people who only want to help." "Help!" Juliet's voice shook. "You threatened to kill me. I suggested terminating an unfortunate situation before it became complicated." Dawson's smile never wavered. "There's a difference, sweetheart. I even offered to pay for the best care, set you up comfortably afterward. But you chose drama instead." William stepped forward, placing himself between Dawson and the women. "You need to leave. Now, before I call the police." "With what phone?" Dawson gestured to the darkened penthouse. "Cell service in this building is routed through a central hub, currently offline, and the police are dealing with a rather urgent situation. A gas leak reported in Times Square. Every available unit has been deployed." He checked his watch, a Vacheron Constantine that cost more than most people's houses. "We have approximately 18 minutes before emergency services realize it's a false alarm." "You orchestrated this?" Elizabeth said, her hand tightening on the gun William had given her. "The power outage, the false emergency. I orchestrated a private conversation with the mother of my child." Dawson's eyes fixed on Juliet's stomach. "A conversation that's long overdue." "She's not going anywhere with you," William said. "Mr. Ashford, is it? The tech billionaire who married into the Sullivan fortune." Dawson's research was showing. "You've built an impressive empire. Be a shame if the SEC suddenly discovered irregularities in your overseas accounts, or if your defense contracts were flagged for review. I chair the committee that approves those, you know." "Are you threatening me, Senator?" "I'm explaining reality." Dawson's voice hardened. "I'm 63 years old. I've spent 40 years building a political career that's about to culminate in a presidential run. I have a wife, 3 grown children, 7 grandchildren, and a legacy that will outlive me." He looked at Juliet. "I also have a voting record that includes some very strong pro-family, pro-marriage rhetoric. A pregnant mistress half my age would be inconvenient. So you'll just make her disappear?" Elizabeth's voice dripped with contempt. "Like you've made other problems disappear?" Dawson's eyes sharpened. "Careful, Mrs. Ashford. Defamation is a serious charge." "Is it defamation if it's true?" Elizabeth pulled out her phone, no service, just as Dawson had said, and switched to airplane mode to access her photos. She'd taken pictures of Juliet's documents earlier, when William showed her the folder. Now she scrolled to one in particular, a letter from their mother's lawyer, outlining the estate distribution and mentioning Grace Sullivan's death. "My aunt died in Jamaica 35 years ago," Elizabeth said.
Car accident.
"Brake failure after she threatened a man connected to dangerous people." She looked up at Dawson. "You were in Jamaica 35 years ago. Wasn't that your first diplomatic posting? Junior liaison to the ambassador." Dawson's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition. Calculation. "You knew Grace," Elizabeth continued, the pieces falling into place with horrible clarity. "You were the man Ruth Peterson fell in love with, the dangerous boyfriend Grace tried to warn her about." "Ancient history," Dawson said dismissively. "Is it? Because it seems like you have a pattern, Senator. Young women who get too close, who threaten your carefully constructed image, who end up in accidents. Elizabeth stepped closer to Juliet. Protective instincts she didn't know she had surging to life. My aunt. And now my sister. Your sister. Dawson's eyebrows rose. How touching. You've known about Juliet for what? An hour? And already you're willing to destroy your reputation defending her. My reputation? Elizabeth laughed. Senator, I'm Elizabeth Sullivan. My family built hospitals, funded schools, shaped this city's skyline. What's your legacy? Lies and dead girls. Dawson's mask slipped. Just for a second, Elizabeth saw the man beneath, cold, ruthless, capable of anything. Then the grandfatherly smile returned. I came here to make an offer, Dawson said. A generous one. Juliet, I'll give you $10 million. You'll sign an NDA, move somewhere quiet, have the baby, and we'll arrange a closed adoption. You'll never have to work again. And if I refuse? Juliet asked. Then you'll have an unfortunate accident. Tragic, really. A pregnant woman, alone in New York, falls down the stairs of her apartment building. These things happen. He paused. Or perhaps your sister has an accident instead. Or her husband. I understand you've grown quite close to Mr. Ashford these past months. Would be terrible if something happened to him because of your stubbornness. William's hand clenched into a fist. You're insane, Elizabeth said.
I'm practical, Dawson corrected.
And I'm running out of patience. Juliet, you have 60 seconds to decide. Take the money and disappear, or watch everyone you care about suffer the consequences. Juliet looked at Elizabeth, at William, at the gun in Elizabeth's hand that they all knew she wouldn't actually use. Not against a senator with armed guards. Not against a man who could spin any shooting into self-defense, who could destroy them with a phone call. I'll go with you, Juliet said quietly.
No.
Elizabeth grabbed her arm. Juliet, he'll kill you. He'll kill you if I don't. Juliet's eyes filled with tears. I won't let that happen. You're my sister. The only family I have left. Wise choice, Dawson said, gesturing toward the elevator. But as Juliet stepped forward, something happened that none of them expected. The penthouse lights flickered back on. Not all of them, just the ones in the foyer. Bright, harsh, focused, like stage lighting. And a voice came from the direction of the master bedroom, cultured and amused. Senator Dawson, I do hope you're enjoying your performance. The cameras certainly are. A woman emerged from the shadows. Late 50s, elegant in a black pantsuit, her silver hair styled in a sleek bob. She held a tablet, its screen displaying multiple camera angles of the foyer, of Dawson, his guards, his threats, everything. Elizabeth's heart stopped. She knew that face. Everyone in New York knew that face. Diana Cross, federal prosecutor. The woman who'd taken down 3 sitting congressmen, 2 Wall Street CEOs, and a mafia don. The woman known as the Dragon of the Southern District. What is this? Dawson's voice had lost its warmth. This, Diana said, tapping the tablet, is you confessing to extortion, conspiracy, and implied murder on camera. Multiple cameras, actually. 16 of them, installed throughout this penthouse 3 months ago when Mr. Ashford came to me with concerns about his sister-in-law's safety. Elizabeth looked at William. You've been working with a federal prosecutor for 3 months? I told you I was handling it, William said, and for the first time since she'd arrived home, he smiled. Dawson's face went white. Those recordings are illegal, inadmissible, in New York. Diana's smile was sharp. Only one party needs to consent to recording, and Mr. Ashford owns this penthouse. He consented. She looked past Dawson to his guards. Gentlemen, I'd recommend putting down your weapons. You're surrounded by FBI agents, and while you might be good at intimidating pregnant women, I doubt you want to test yourselves against federal law enforcement. As if on cue, the stairwell door burst open. 6 agents in FBI windbreakers poured in, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Dawson stood frozen, his carefully constructed world collapsing in real time. And Juliet started laughing, crying and laughing at the same time, her hand on her stomach, relief and hysteria mixing into something that sounded like freedom. "It's over," William said, pulling Elizabeth close. "It's finally over." But Elizabeth was looking at Diana Cross, at the prosecutor who'd somehow been involved in this for months, and a cold suspicion was forming. "How did you know about Juliet?" Elizabeth asked. 3 months ago, William said. "But Juliet only showed up here 2 months ago." Diana's expression didn't change. "That's an excellent question, Mrs. Ashford." And Elizabeth knew with sudden certainty that this wasn't over at all. It was just beginning. Diana Cross set the tablet down on the entry table, her movements deliberate and controlled. The FBI agents were securing Dawson and his men, reading rights, applying handcuffs with practiced efficiency. But Diana's attention was fixed on Elizabeth. "Your mother didn't give up one daughter, Mrs. Ashford," Diana said quietly. "She gave up 2. The world stopped. Elizabeth heard the words but couldn't process them, couldn't make them mean what they seemed to mean. "What?" she whispered. Diana pulled a file from her briefcase, thicker than the one William had shown Elizabeth earlier. "Catherine Sullivan was pregnant twice before she married your father. Once at 19 and once at 21. The first baby, Juliet, was given up for adoption, as you now know." She paused. "The second baby died, or so the records say." "I don't understand," Elizabeth said. "The second baby was Grace's daughter," Juliet said, and her voice was different now. Stronger. The frightened, fragile girl was gone, replaced by someone harder, someone with purpose. Grace Sullivan didn't die childless in Jamaica. She died 6 months pregnant. Elizabeth's knees buckled. William caught her, but she barely felt his hands. "That's impossible," Elizabeth breathed. "The autopsy was falsified," Diana said. "The baby was delivered via emergency cesarean section after the crash. She survived. Grace didn't." "Where?" Elizabeth couldn't finish the question. Diana gestured to someone in the hallway. Another woman stepped forward. Early 30s, Grace's face, Grace's eyes, very much alive. "Elizabeth," the woman said gently. "I'm Special Agent Nina Carpenter, FBI, and I'm your cousin." Elizabeth stared at the stranger who looked like a ghost, like family, like everything she thought she knew turned inside out. "This entire thing was a setup," Elizabeth said slowly, looking at Juliet. "You, the pregnancy, Dawson, all of it." "Not all of it," Juliet said, her hand still on her stomach. "The baby's real, and Dawson really is the father. But when I found out I was pregnant, I went to the FBI instead of running. Because Nina found me first. I've been tracking Dawson for 5 years, Nina said, building a case against the man who killed my mother. When Juliet came forward, pregnant with his child, I saw an opportunity. A way to finally get him on record admitting to threats to murder. So you used her as bait?" Elizabeth said, anger flooding through shock. You put my sister and her baby in danger to catch him? I volunteered, Juliet said firmly. Nina told me everything about Grace, about Dawson's pattern, about the women who'd disappeared over the years, and I chose to help stop him. By lying to me, Elizabeth said, looking at William. By making my husband complicit in this operation for 3 months while you were kept safe, William said. Elizabeth, if you'd known, you would have reacted differently. Dawson was watching us. He had to believe Juliet was genuinely hiding, genuinely scared. I was scared, Juliet said, but I was also fighting back. Elizabeth looked at the three of them. Her husband, her sister, her cousin she'd never known existed, and felt something fundamental break inside her. My whole life is a lie, she whispered. No, Nina said, stepping closer. Your whole life has been leading to this moment, to all of us standing together, finally bringing down the man who destroyed our family. Our family, Elizabeth repeated. She looked at Nina. You're Grace's daughter, and you're Catherine's, and Juliet is our sister. Nina's voice was steady. We're all that's left of them, all that survives. Elizabeth closed her eyes, felt tears burning behind her lids. When she opened them, Senator Richard Dawson was staring at her from his handcuffs, and she saw fear in his eyes for the first time. Good, she thought. Let him be afraid, because the Sullivan women were done being victims. Diana Cross's phone rang. She answered, listened for 10 seconds, and her face went ashen. Release him, she said to the FBI agents. Silence crashed through the penthouse. What? Nina's voice was sharp. Diana, we have him on tape. The warrant was denied. Federal judge just blocked it. Everything we've recorded in the last hour is inadmissible. Diana's voice was hollow. We have to let him go. That's impossible, William said. We had approval from Judge Patricia Hammond, who apparently just recused herself due to a conflict of interest that came to light 10 minutes ago. Diana looked at Dawson, and Elizabeth saw defeat in her eyes. A conflict involving her daughter's substantial campaign donations to Senator Dawson's Presidential Exploratory Committee. Dawson smiled as the agents uncuffed him. Did you really think I wouldn't have contingencies? I've been playing this game since before you were born, Miss Cross. You can't just walk away, Juliet said desperately. You threatened us, you admitted. I admitted nothing that will hold up in court. Dawson straightened his suit jacket. And even if I have 14 witnesses who'll testify I was at a Christmas charity event all evening. Security footage, time-stamped photos, an airtight alibi. You're here right now, Elizabeth said. Am I? Dawson gestured to his men, who were already erasing something on their phones. My security team will testify we never left the event, that this entire encounter never happened, and a federal prosecutor who obtained recordings without a valid warrant. Her career is over. Diana's hands clenched into fists. Here's what happens next, Dawson said, his voice pleasant again. You all forget this evening occurred. Juliet quietly disappears. I'm thinking a nice facility overseas, somewhere without extradition treaties. The baby will be adopted by a good family, and Elizabeth stood at the window, watching snow fall over Central Park, her reflection ghostly in the glass. Behind her, William was still on the phone, Nina was pacing, and Juliet sat on the sofa looking devastated. They were all fighting, all scrambling, all doing exactly what Dawson expected. And suddenly Elizabeth understood why they were losing. "Stop," she said quietly. No one heard her. "Stop!" Louder this time. Everyone turned. "We're playing his game, fighting on his terms. That's why we keep losing." "Elizabeth, we don't have time for philosophy," William said. "We have 3 hours to—" "To what? Find a legal loophole? Dawson owns judges. Get the media involved? He controls the narrative. Fight him in his world with his rules." Elizabeth turned from the window. "We'll lose every time." "Then what do you suggest?" Diana asked, her voice tight with frustration. Elizabeth looked at her sister, at her cousin, at the family she discovered in a single chaotic evening. 3 generations of Sullivan women, connected by secrets and tragedy. And suddenly she knew exactly what her mother would do. "We don't fight him," Elizabeth said. "We make him irrelevant." She pulled out her phone, scrolled through contacts, and called a number she hadn't dialed in years. "Charlotte? It's Elizabeth Sullivan. I need a favor. A big one. Yes, I know it's Christmas Eve. I need you to call every board member of every foundation mother established. Tell them we're having an emergency meeting tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. at the plaza, because I'm about to announce the largest charitable initiative in Sullivan family history, and I want witnesses." She hung up and made another call. "Marcus? Elizabeth Ashford. I need you to reach out to every major media outlet in the city. Tell them the Sullivan family is making a major announcement tomorrow morning. No, not a press release. A live broadcast. And Marcus, make sure Senator Dawson's office gets an invitation." "What are you doing?" William asked. Elizabeth smiled. The smile her mother had taught her. The one that looked gracious but meant war. "Dawson's entire power comes from secrecy, from controlling information, manipulating behind closed doors. So we're going to do the opposite." "You want to go public?" Nina said. "Elizabeth, if you expose Juliet's pregnancy—" "I'm not exposing Juliet's pregnancy," Elizabeth said. "I'm announcing that I found my long-lost sister and cousin, that the Sullivan family is reuniting after decades of tragedy, that we're establishing the Grace Sullivan Foundation for women and children in crisis." Understanding dawned on Diana's face. "If Juliet is publicly recognized as your sister, then she can't quietly disappear," Elizabeth finished. "She becomes a public figure, protected by visibility instead of hiding in shadows." "Dawson will still come after us," William said. "Let him try." Elizabeth moved to Juliet, took her hand. "But he'll have to do it in front of cameras, reporters, and the entire city watching. Can he make 3 Sullivan women disappear without anyone noticing? Can he threaten us when we're standing in the spotlight?" "He'll deny everything," Juliet said. "Say he never knew me." "Perfect." Elizabeth's smile widened. "Then he won't object to a paternity test. Public one. Because if he's not the father, he has nothing to hide." "And if he refuses the test?" Nina asked. "Then everyone will wonder why." Elizabeth looked at each of them. "Dawson's power is built on his image. Family man, moral leader, presidential material. We can't destroy him legally, but we can destroy his image. And without that, he's just another politician with secrets." William laughed suddenly, understanding. "You're going to ruin him socially instead of legally." "I'm going to make him radioactive," Elizabeth corrected. "Every donor, every supporter, every voter will look at him and see scandal, see questions, see risk." She squeezed Juliet's hand. We're Sullivan women. We don't need the law to win. We just need people watching. For the first time since Dawson left, hope flickered in Juliet's eyes. This could actually work, Nina said slowly. It will work, Elizabeth said, because we're done being victims, done hiding, done being afraid. She looked at the clock. 3 hours until Dawson's midnight deadline. Time to show him what the Sullivan family was really capable of. The Plaza Hotel ballroom was packed by 9:30 the next morning. Elizabeth had called in every favor, activated every connection her family had built over 3 generations. Camera crews from 5 major networks, reporters from a dozen publications, and seated in the front row, looking calm but calculated, Senator Richard Dawson. He'd come. Of course he'd come. Staying away would have looked suspicious. Elizabeth stood backstage with Juliet and Nina, all 3 of them dressed in Sullivan blue, the color their grandmother had made famous, the color that meant power and legacy. You don't have to do this, Elizabeth told Juliet. We can find another way. No, Juliet said, her hand on her stomach. This ends today. For all of us. Nina squeezed her shoulder. Grace would be proud. At exactly 10 a.m., Elizabeth walked onto the stage. The crowd quieted instantly. Thank you for coming, Elizabeth began. 24 hours ago, I learned something that changed my life. I learned that I'm not an only child. That my mother, Catherine Sullivan, had 2 daughters she gave up for adoption before I was born. One of them, Juliet Sullivan, found me 6 months ago. And the other, Nina Carpenter, has been searching for our family her entire life. She gestured, and Juliet and Nina joined her on stage. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. Today, I'm announcing the Grace Sullivan Foundation, named for my aunt who died too young. This foundation will provide legal protection, housing, and medical care for women facing threats from powerful men. Women who are told to stay silent, to disappear, to choose between their safety and their voice. Elizabeth looked directly at Dawson. We're also announcing a $10 million fund for investigative journalism into political corruption. Because sunlight is the best disinfectant. Dawson's smile never wavered, but Elizabeth saw his jaw tighten. And finally, Elizabeth said, I want to address something personal. My sister Juliet is pregnant. The father is a powerful man who has threatened her, offered her money to disappear, and suggested that accidents might happen if she refuses. She paused. That man is in this room. The crowd erupted. Cameras swung, searching. Dawson stood slowly, his expression perfectly calibrated for concern and confusion. Mrs. Ashford, I don't know what you've been told, but... Senator Dawson, Elizabeth interrupted. Would you be willing to take a paternity test? Publicly? To clear your name? The room went silent. Dawson's smile froze. This is absurd. I've never even met your sister. Then the test will prove that, Elizabeth said. Unless you have a reason to refuse? I'm not going to dignify these accusations. The test takes 5 minutes, Nina said, stepping forward with an FBI evidence kit. Cheek swab. Results in 72 hours. If you're innocent, Senator, why not prove it? Dawson looked at the cameras, at the reporters, at his entire presidential campaign hanging in the balance. If he took the test, he was finished. If he refused, he was finished. Elizabeth had given him a choice where every option was destruction. You can't do this, Dawson said, and for the first time his voice shook. Watch me, Elizabeth said, And in that moment, surrounded by her sisters, defending her family, Elizabeth Sullivan had never felt more powerful. Dawson turned and walked out of the ballroom, leaving his political career in ruins behind him. The Sullivan women had won. 6 months later, Elizabeth stood in the nursery of the penthouse, watching Juliet rock a tiny baby girl with Grace's eyes. "She's perfect," Elizabeth whispered. "She really is." Juliet agreed, her voice full of wonder. "I still can't believe she's mine." Senator Richard Dawson had resigned 2 weeks after the Plaza press conference, citing health concerns. The paternity test, which he'd finally agreed to under mounting pressure, had confirmed what everyone already knew. His presidential bid had collapsed. His wife had filed for divorce, and federal investigators were building a case that would likely see him in prison within the year. But that wasn't the victory Elizabeth cherished most. The victory was this: her sister, safe and whole, holding her daughter in a home filled with love instead of fear. "Have you decided on a name?" Nina asked, appearing in the doorway in her FBI windbreaker. She'd been promoted after the Dawson case broke. Lead investigator on political corruption. Grace's daughter, fighting for justice. "Catherine Grace Sullivan," Juliet said. "After both of them, the women who gave us life." Elizabeth felt tears prick her eyes. William appeared behind Nina, slipping his arm around Elizabeth's waist. They'd spent the last 6 months rebuilding trust, learning to communicate, choosing honesty over protection. It had been hard, painful, necessary, and worth it. The foundation received another major donation today, William said.
Bredzi.
$20 million. "Let me guess," Elizabeth said. "From one of Dawson's former colleagues, trying to distance themselves?" "Probably." William kissed her temple. "But money is money, and we're using it to help women like Juliet. Women who need protection, resources, a way out." Elizabeth looked around the nursery, at her sister, her cousin, her husband, the baby who represented a future instead of a tragedy. Her family hadn't started the way she'd expected. It had been built from secrets and lies and pain that echoed across generations. But it was hers, and it was real, and it was enough. "I have something to tell you all," Elizabeth said quietly. "I went to the doctor yesterday." Everyone turned to look at her. "I'm pregnant," Elizabeth said, and watched joy explode across their faces. 12 weeks. "We wanted to wait until we were sure. But," her voice caught, "we're having a baby." Juliet started crying. Nina hugged her. William pulled Elizabeth close, his own eyes wet. "Our children will grow up together," Juliet said. "Cousins. Family. Sisters," Elizabeth corrected, looking at Juliet and Nina. "Just like us." Outside, snow was beginning to fall over Manhattan. Christmas was coming again. A year since Elizabeth had walked into her home and discovered her life was nothing like she thought. A year since she'd found her family. And as Elizabeth stood surrounded by the people she loved, holding the future inside her, she understood something her mother had known all along. Family wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing each other again and again, through secrets and forgiveness and love that survived everything. The Sullivan women had survived, and they were just beginning. D&D, what a journey. Did this story give you all the feels? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you loved watching Elizabeth, Juliet, and Nina find their way to each other, make sure you're subscribed to the channel for more stories about family, redemption, and the power of truth. Where are you watching from today? Let us know. We love hearing from you. Until next time, remember, the truth might hurt, but secrets destroy. Choose brave. Choose honest. Choose family.